I'm on the board of directors of IBEC and a few other things. I'm a business ethicist for 35 years. I've worked as a corporate ethics officer at 3 Fortune 500 companies, and right now I'm the integrity and compliance investigator for a pharmaceutical company called Indivior. So our corporation has a code of ethics, and my job is to conduct investigations when there are allegations that people have violated the code of ethics. I used to be the head of the ECOA, which is the world's professional association for corporate ethics officers. And I teach at the University of Colorado at Denver and in the executive MBA program, and I've taught at 9 universities over the years. Our judge today is Michelle Castle, and if I could ask Michelle to introduce herself.
Sure. Good morning, everyone. I'm Michelle Castle. I'm currently working as an independent consultant. I work with healthcare organizations and providers. I have over 20 years of experience in healthcare compliance, including ethics, privacy compliance, research compliance, investigations as well. So I've worked with organizations to really look at their internal controls, see how they're doing, where can we improve. I also have some audit background as well. And then pertinent to this competition, I have my MBA as well. So I'm familiar with some of the programming that you're working through. And then I've also been a compliance officer for multiple organizations. So I've also sat on boards and reported to boards. So I'm familiar with, the presentation styles and such. So good luck today. I'm sure you'll all do wonderful. And really congratulations on making the effort and getting this far. So I look forward to it. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you, Michelle. So if the way it's going to run this morning is this is the 10-minute competition. So Michelle and I are going to be paying attention to time. There will be a certain moment in time when I say, okay, USF, you go. And we'll time it. So it's very ideal if you don't exceed the 10 minutes, but obviously it would be great for you to use as much of the 10 minutes as you can, so you can, give as much valuable information. We will start with USF, and then we'll go to UMass. Then we'll go to St. Anselm, and if we're lucky enough to have Georgia join us at some point in time, I'll invite them to follow St. Anselm. You will each present for your 10 minutes, and then you'll be done, and it'll be great. And then I will jump in and invite the next team, and just to give that little 15 seconds in between so that Michelle and I can recalculate and things like that. And the little script that Tom has asked all of us Uber judges to read is as follows. You have been called back by the same company you gave your full presentation to yesterday, and they're asking you back for a second visit. They've asked you to speak only about the ethical aspects of the problem and to explain why your solution successfully handles any ethical issues. You will have 10 minutes. There will be no Q&A like yesterday. You may not use slides or video. And that's it. And so, yeah, and so the thing is, I guess I'm wondering, you know what, I'm going to leave it up to you teams, because remember yesterday it was such a big deal to start off by saying, we are this and you, Michelle, are this or something. If you do that, fine. If you don't do that, fine. Won't affect your score either way. Everything Michelle is going to be analyzing is how you make use of the 10 minutes and how you help her understand. But what's important here is for you to assume that the audience heard you yesterday. And you're just going, but we're bringing you back because the ethics part is so important, and we need you to re-emphasize it before, we can make big decisions. So does anyone have any questions at all before we jump in? Okay, you would probably like it if I would stop talking and we jump into this. So, okay, so we are going to start with USF. Michelle, are you ready? Okay, perfect. So I've got 26 minutes after the hour, and USF, you are on. Go for it.
Thank you so much. We'd like to first begin by thanking the Twitch Interactive Board of Directors for inviting us, Level Up Consulting firm, back for a second visit to focus on the ethical issues that we explained in our first consultation. We recognize you, Twitch, as an international leader in the streaming world, known for your breadth of content and talent available for all users to enjoy, as well as your continued efforts towards making your platform a safer place. However, we believe there is much more that needs to be done when it comes to protecting children on the platform. In fact, we believe this is our main ethical issue here today, the lack of structural protection currently on Twitch to protect these young users. Now, we as a society view children as especially vulnerable moral patients. This means that they lack the proper moral agency to be able to make decisions that impact their health and well-being to a large extent, because they lack the proper faculties to be able to understand these decisions and the consequences that come about as a result. Children are also especially vulnerable to bad actors that are looking to take advantage of this vulnerability and naivety. So we see that it's our duty, it's our responsibility as those with this moral agency to be able to step in and protect these children. And it's your duty as a company to be able to protect the users on your platform just as well. Now, with this being said, we've seen little to no effective preventative measures on Twitch's platform to protect these young users. Now, we see Twitch time and time again submerged in muddy water with reports of harm being done to these children. For instance, children having access to gambling streams has been popular in reports recently. When you look at the real world parallels to this issue, we see that often children aren't even able to enter casinos to view this gambling, let alone sit with, chat with, interact with, and give money to the people that are playing these slots and these casino games as they can on Twitch. Well, children aren't just exposed to this harmful content, they're exposed to numerous child predators on Twitch as well. In an independent investigation by Bloomberg, they found thousands of these child predators on Twitch interacting with thousands of youth streamers. Over the course of just 22 months, over 280,000 children were found to be victims of these child predators. Now, in order to lay the appropriate foundation for explaining how this could happen in the first place, we want to first explore the current policies in place to protect child viewership.
13 is the minimum age required to make a Twitch account, with users 17 and younger requiring a parent to be present while creating an account. This parent is also bound by Twitch's terms of service. Now, Twitch has a section in their community guidelines dedicated to service, specifically with their child sexual abuse material policies that aim to prevent any exploitation of children on the platform. Twitch has also released a statement in regards to parents' safety concerns for their children on the platform, in which they state that the safety of these minors are the first and foremost concern for them. Now, we commend Twitch for these statements. However, we have yet to see the effectiveness of the power that they hold. So we, Level Up Consulting, decided to test the validity of these statements by setting up an experiment. We created an account on Twitch, posing as a 13-year-old to see what content we were able to access. Through 3 easy steps of inputting our name, email address that required no verification after the creation of the account, and a birthday so that the system can acknowledge us as a 13-year-old. What we found was that after the creation of the account, we were able to access whatever we want and talk to whoever we wanted. Now, it is clear as day that Twitch's barriers to entry are minimal and easy to overcome. We could have just as easily been 12 or younger, creating an account with all of this power. Now you, the Twitch board of directors, may be asking, why is Twitch at fault? And why shouldn't parents take more responsibility for their children on the platform? And what we have to say is that parents do hold responsibility for these issues. However, it ultimately falls on Twitch because they have ensured the parents through mission statements and security policies that their child will be safe on the platform. However, by not fulfilling the responsibilities that Twitch has created for itself, it is therefore acting as an unethical company.
And to go back to the account that we had created earlier, again, just as Chris had mentioned, we wanted to see how easily we could access content inappropriate for our age as a registered 13-year-old, but also as somebody that could be younger than 13 who had deceived the system. We were able to input that we preferred gambling content to be exposed to poker games, casinos, online slots, and we were able to choose users that we wanted to immediately subscribe to with these focuses as well. We were taken to a stream immediately after doing so. We were given an age warning saying this is inappropriate, but we, just as any curious 13-year-old or somebody younger would do, we clicked keep watching and were immediately taken to the stream with no further barriers to entry. So what's the harm done to children as a result of exposure to this kind of content? Researchers in the National Library of Medicine set out to understand just this. They found that adolescents are particularly vulnerable to online gambling streams because they're colorful, they have fast-paced imagery, they have narrative as structures like video games. Furthermore, consequences abound as a result of this exposure. Various mental health issues such as anxiety, depression, suicidal ideation, and even suicide attempts have been found amongst these children exposed to gambling. Furthermore, a host of familial health issues, social health issues, peer health issues, as well as impaired academic performance have also been cited in these children. But again, this harmful content isn't all that these children are exposed to. They're exposed to child predators. We want you to take a minute to imagine this scenario. Imagine two young girls on a hot August morning deciding to create a Twitch account. They're excited to do so, and they're excited to start streaming and entertaining their viewers. They want to meet new people and interact with new people. After doing so and easily deceiving the age verification system as being because they're under the age of 13, they're excited to see the first user enter their stream. They're even more excited when this user begins chatting with them, asking them to do things such as handstands or TikTok dances or reaching for things on their wall to expose their small bodies. And this predator then leaves this chat and goes on to dozens more, repeating these same actions and hurting children in the process. Now, would you want your children to be on this platform and to be exposed to these kind of predators? Would you feel betrayed by a platform that has in its mission to protect these children, that says it's dedicated to protecting these children? We would hope you would feel betrayed, and we would hope you would want to see solutions implemented to ensure this never happens again.
Level Up Solutions target this ethical issue in a multifaceted approach that aims to put the safety of children at the very top of Twitch's concerns. And by doing so, or by implementing these solutions into Twitch's infrastructure, Twitch will ultimately be able to create large and unscalable walls for preventing younger audiences from accessing mature content and from predators being able to access younger users. Our first solution would be to restructure the community guidelines for Twitch, specifically about what is allowed to be viewed and what is allowed to be streamed by what audiences. This would allow Twitch to approach this issue in an ethical and legal manner. Our second solution would be implementation of further age authentication systems, such as requiring proof of identification through means such as a driver's license or even a credit card. Now, this solution isn't meant to block out users in other countries who don't have a uniform identification system. Rather, until these users are able to prove their age they will be restricted from mature content only and will be able to still access Twitch's services. Our final solution would be prohibiting younger audiences from interacting with older ones in a private manner, such as disabling direct messages coming to the younger users, disabling the whisper feature, and disabling mentions to the younger user in the Twitch chats. And we at Level Up would hope that you deeply consider our solutions and what they can do for your company. We believe that Twitch, by implementing these solutions, can set precedents for media consumption on allowing true safety of our children on this platform. We'd like to thank you again for your time.
Very good. Thank you so much. Okay. Again, Michelle, I'm just going to give you a couple of seconds here to get organized. I had that at something like 9 minutes and 50 seconds, which is as close to perfect as you can get for timing. So nice job.
I'm ready when you
Okay.
are. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Michelle. UMass, you have got 10 minutes, got 37 minutes after the hour, so please proceed.
Thank you. Good morning, everybody. My name is Fiona Herskovich,
And I'm Sophia Roselli.
and we are the Eisenberg Innovation Consultants, and we are so excited to be returning to speak with the Starbucks Executive Board this morning. We've been called back to discuss the ethical implications behind our recommendation of how Starbucks should approach unionization attempts across the nation. Your mission says that you aim to inspire and nurture the human spirit, a value statement linked to the ethical principle of flourishing, the idea that a company should support its employees as people and professionals. However, your actions regarding unionization attempts have acted in contradiction to this value. You have retaliated against these efforts by closing stores and acquiring costly legal defense, exposing an ethical question facing many corporations today. How should employers respond to employee collective action? You have been presented with three options. The first, Starbucks can continue to keep denying unions. The second, Starbucks can completely embrace unions. And third, Starbucks can recognize union efforts as an opportunity to recommit to a culture of belonging. We recommend option number 3 as the most ethical approach because this middle way promotes flourishing for both employees and Starbucks. I'm going to pass it off to my colleague Sophia to take us through option number 1.
Thank you, Fiona. Good morning, everyone. So if Starbucks stays on this path of denying unions, the world sees them as an unresponsive employer, a world that is increasingly concerned with authenticity and transparency in the workplace. By acting in opposition to your mission to create a flourishing culture that supports employees as people and professionals, your baristas have spoken up. They're demanding an increase in pay, better benefits, and better working conditions. If you continue acting this way, ethically, you're infringing on your employees' rights to collective action, which will tarnish your brand identity. This option also has severe legal consequences, as seen by numerous NLRB complaints, and most recently, a ruling by NLRB judge that found Starbucks engaged in egregious misconduct. This option also poses financial risk as customers begin to boycott Starbucks out of support for their fellow Gen Zers. Today's generation is not afraid to fight for fairness, and we're concerned that they will likely use public platforms that will continue to damage the Starbucks name. Think twice before continuing on the path you're on. Your actions will be remembered by you, as well as millions of people around the world. I now pass it off to Fiona to explain option number 2.
As we remember, option number 2 is Starbucks completely embracing unions. If Starbucks chooses this option, workers may find that completely embracing unions does not actually fulfill all of their interests. Although unions have a variety of benefits, including balancing market power and of course raising wages, union employees are subject to paying union costs out of their salaries, around 1% to 2%, and will have to face uncertainty or even decertification every 3 years when collective bargaining contracts are up for renewal. For many Starbucks employees, 3 years is their tenure with the company, posing an issue for commitment to the union. Completely embracing unions also poses a financial risk related to increased wages and benefits packages, compromising Starbucks' duty to its shareholders. Legally, this option is inflexible due to the signing of a collective bargaining agreement, which will further prevent Starbucks from continuously engaging with employees to create benefits that support their current livelihoods. As we saw during COVID, having the flexibility to respond to employee needs is vital to supporting your workplace in this dynamic economy. If Starbucks takes this approach, the company sets a precedent for employees across service industries that the only way to achieve the workplace environment they deserve is to do so through unionization. This belief erodes trust and transparent communication between a corporation and its employees. Returning to our core ethical question, this option casts doubt on whether employees can truly come to their employer independently without the backing of a union, without fear of retaliation from their corporation. I'm now going to pass it back off to Sophia to take us through option number 3.
Thank you. If you choose our recommendation, option number 3, and recognize union efforts as an opportunity to recommit to a culture of belonging, you will align your actions with your words, regaining the trust of employees and consumers that Starbucks does what they say and says what they do. This option is financially viable because it prevents companies from spending dollars on union busting and reallocates those funds back to partners themselves, reducing service employee turnover rates. This option is legally viable because it enables communication between Starbucks and its employees to create benefits that create safe and supportive work environments that are both legally compliant and promote flourishing. By taking this approach, Starbucks sets the stage as a service industry leader by showing change can be fostered from within. The service industry currently provides benefits for the workforce of the past. To fully understand the needs of employees today, companies need to evaluate what makes the workforce of today, millennials and Gen Zers, want to invest their time at their company. The answer lies in relevant benefits that support the livelihoods of today and the employees' futures of tomorrow. I now pass it back off to Fiona to begin our recommendations.
Thanks, Sophia. For the best ethical outcome, as well as legal and financial, Starbucks' approach to unionization should be option number 3. By recognizing union efforts as an opportunity to recommit to a culture of belonging, Starbucks will prove to its employees and consumer base that they are authentic in their mission. Recognizing unions does not mean embracing them. Instead, Starbucks should see unions as groups of partners sharing similar concerns and ideas for improvement. With this rise in unionization, it is time for Starbucks to accept these concerns and change with the needs of their employees and the demand of this generation. The call for unionization comes from the difference between what Starbucks says and what Starbucks does. For example, managers may promise 38 hours to a barista who depends on this income stream to support her rent and pay back her student loan debt. When this barista is only scheduled for 15 hours, there is a snowball effect, compromising her ability to flourish as both a professional and a human being. Unions are born out of a necessity to keep companies accountable. If Starbucks commits to hearing the needs of employees and acting on them, the need for unions will dissolve in place of a renewal of flourishing culture. I'm now going to pass it back off to Sophia to finish us off.
Thank you, Fiona. We know that the world today remembers what you do, not what you say. To ensure Starbucks responds to the needs of employees, we recommend implementing proper training for middle managers to navigate these unpredictable workplace situations ethically, using empathy, empowerment, and exceptionality as guiding principles to foster a culture of belonging beyond Starbucks' mission statement and into stores. Additionally, we recommend instating a 10-week plan to launch listening sessions to grasp the benefits that partners need to invest part of their career at Starbucks. These listening sessions should follow a 4-part plan: commitment, communication, consultation, and corroboration. To show commitment to your employees to making work conditions better, Starbucks should establish a people and culture task force made up of members of HR, senior executives, and middle managers that will be responsible for developing relevant benefits in response to listening sessions. Once this task force is established, Starbucks should develop a public information campaign to ensure employees are aware of this opportunity to share their recommendations with you. To set in place a feedback cycle, Starbucks should establish guidelines for listening sessions and the task force in order to make consultation effective. Consultation is followed by corroboration, which recommends that Starbucks host continuous listening sessions to develop a set of evolving benefits that align with the needs of partners today. We foresee some of these benefits being related to the minimizing of the complexity of the trending TikTok drink orders and returning the increasing profits from these orders from this revenue stream back to the employees who pour it. Because, as your former CEO, Howard Schultz, used to say, success is best when it's shared. Thank you.
Thank you.
Perfect. Okay. Thank you. Another great example with timing. So let me stop and say, for this screen where I see the name Lance Elliott, if you could take off your mic, are you the representatives of Georgia?
Yes, sir.
Oh, okay, perfect. Okay, so if it's okay, St. Anselm, I'll go ahead and get them up to date and have them be third, and then you guys be fourth. So thank you for your flexibility. So representing Georgia, what are your two names?
My name is Anselm.
Hi, my name is Gwen Baer.
Okay, Lance and Gwen. Okay, and so to help you understand how we're doing things this morning, there's 4 teams. 2 of the teams have already delivered. You have up to 10 minutes. You know, if don't just stop at 10 minutes if you're not done. If you have to go over, please do to complete what you're doing. But it's ideal for you to land somewhere between 9 and 10 minutes and not go over 10 minutes if you can. And you will deliver your 10 minutes and then we'll stop. We'll give our judge, Michelle, a few minutes to collect, or a few seconds to collect herself. And then we'll start with our final team, St. Anselm. And then when they're done, all 4 of the teams will be done. Michelle will share general feedback with everyone, then specific feedback for each team and possibly each presenter. And then I'll do the same. And then that will conclude our morning. You know, we have up until 9:45, I think, your time. Yes, we have up until 9:45. We may not use all of that time, but we have lots of time for you to ask questions of Michelle and I and things like that. And I want to share with you, Georgia, the content of the script that I read to the other teams at 8:15. You have been called back by the company you gave your full presentation to yesterday for a second visit. They have asked you to speak only about the ethical aspects of the problem and to explain why your solution successfully handles any ethical issues. You will have 10 minutes. There will be no Q&A. You may not use slides or video. So, Lance or Gwen, do you have any questions? Okay, and do you feel comfortable starting your 10 minutes, you know, in a few seconds, or would you prefer St. Anselm to go first?
Yeah.
We can absolutely go.
Yeah.
Okay, great. So what we're going to do is Michelle and I are paying attention to the time. And so in a couple of seconds, I'll say, let's go. And then you can get started. And so let's go.
All right. I appreciate you all seeing us as the CEOs of TikTok. We apologize for our initial tardiness. We had the wrong Zoom link for a minute there. However, we are we're Bulldog Consulting Group, and we appreciate being called back. The spread of health misinformation through a popular global social media platform is worthy of attention, especially when the consequences can be far-reaching for the company and the general population. Consequences can range from a depleting user base to due to fake news to harm as serious as death from taking advice online. The World Health Organization defines infodemic as too much information, including false or misleading information in digital and physical environments during a disease outbreak, which causes confusion, risk-taking behaviors, it undermines the public health response, and it leads to mistrust in health authorities. Harmful misinformation that is inaccurate or false it causes significant harm for its user base. It not only can cause physical harm or death to individuals who follow false or misleading health advice or treatments, such as unproven remedies, refusing vaccines, or ignoring public health measures, but it can also cause psychological harm or distress to individuals exposed to fear-mongering, panic, or stigma related to health issues, such as pandemics, diseases, or disabilities. It can cause social harm or division to communities that are polarized, radicalized, or discriminated against based on health misinformation, such as conspiracy theories, disinformation campaigns, or extremist views. There are far-reaching ramifications, as we've seen in the recent misinformation campaign that was Dominion Voting Systems suing Fox News for the misinformation of the fraudulent campaign rhetoric. And they recently settled the lawsuit for $1.6 billion, proving that there is a stake in tackling the misinformation problem. Lastly, for me, freedom of speech is a cherished principle that allows us to express our beliefs and opinions without fear of censorship or reprisal. However, when it comes to private platforms like social media, the question of free speech becomes more complex, and as a private company, they can set rules and guidelines for what is and isn't allowed on their platform. And this means TikTok can restrict certain types of speech or behavior that they believe are harmful or inappropriate, even if those forms of expression are protected by the First Amendment in a public space. And now I will hand it off to you, Lance.
So we want to hone down that the biggest problem with the misinformation is the health effects caused by implicit misinformation. And implicit misinformation, which I will go over in a second here, is causing this widespread vaccine hesitancy or fear and panic among the populace, such as, for example, abortion. A lot of states are cracking down on abortion or taking away rights for abortion. And now women that are seeking abortion are looking at advice on TikTok on how to get one in unsafe ways that could do have long-lasting damages to the individuals. I want to also clarify is that we're not too worried about like what we call explicit misinformation, misinformation that's obviously false, such as like eating tripods will cure your COVID-19, or that doing like a Benadryl challenge, which is going on right now, is gonna like increase your brain cells This kind of information can affect other individuals, but we feel like this is in low enough numbers where that's kind of the individual responsibility. Implicit information, misinformation is a harder thing to tackle because this is misinformation that's that's coded in a bit of truth. I think the saying goes that every good lie has a bit of truth in it, and that's what makes it more dangerous. We wanted to talk about an example. We want to talk about an example with the ivermectin, where ivermectin was, or with the meaning called like a horse tranquilizer, was spread virally through things like TikTok to be like an effective treatment for COVID-19. And there was actual studies that actually demonstrated, yeah, it could be effective treatment. But when you look closer, when you add context to this kind of misinformation, you begin to see that the studies were done mostly in Bangladesh and had very bad methodology as well. And most of the studies came down to worms playing a part in the treatment of COVID-19 with ivermectin. If ivermectin was given to an individual with both the worm and COVID-19, then it actually did show like good results. And this kind of warped studies. And so we had a problem where individuals were actually citing true studies and not completely right, while we had health institutions say that these studies are that ivermectin has no effects on COVID-19. This is by its nature why this kind of misinformation is just very, very hard to deal with. And what I think the moral of that kind of story is that just telling people, just having a fact checking on tweets with the CDC or any kind of health institution saying that no, ivermectin is not an effective treatment for COVID-19, or no, this is not a real health advice, et cetera, isn't going to work for many amount of people because there's already big mistrust in institutions. Now, our solutions for this that we want to push is going to rely on institutions at the same time. What we see, and it's a little bit more complicated of a solution, is that we want government and health independent health agencies working with TikTok to create a collaborative effort on pushing better health information. Instead of the CDC saying these studies are wrong, or that you don't need to, or just listen to us, et cetera, we want TikTok to be a space where health professionals can go through the data, can go through misinformation, especially in breaking news health misinformation, so people can have expanded context of what's going on. There was a very big, we saw during COVID-19 that there was a very big there was miscommunications between the institutions themselves and the public sphere, in the public sphere of discourse. And TikTok it's been a huge influencer in the public sphere of discourse. And I want to point an example of a woman that was on Joe Rogan, which had millions of views, talking about the East Palestine incident. If you're unfamiliar with that incident, it was a railway wreckage. There was leakage of dangerous plastic materials that were incredibly toxic. And what they did was have to burn the fumes so it would spread out, so it would go into the air. Now, this sounds scary, but this is, not only was this a rare occurrence, but this is also common practice between doing this. And the discourse was very confused on what's going on, how bad is this? Is it safe to burn these chemicals around around the city? But it wasn't until chemists on TikTok went into details yeah, this is the chemical that was burned. It's completely harmless when it's burned as a gas, and they went through step by step the process and why it's it would be fine. And I think that's the way to go in the future when talking about these breaking news health and misinformation. And so what we want to see is a collaborative effort with TikTok, with different health institutions, getting their own TikToks on the platform, talking about these issues, but also TikTok promoting health professional users as well. But this also takes both sides, and this takes communication by both sides. If you're dealing with breaking news, misinformation, sometimes even health professionals get it wrong as well. And so we need health professionals, we need to hold health professionals to a lighter standard if they're trying to break this health information, just to kind of inform the public to rationally think about these kind of things. We would also like government involvement in TikTok as well, to counter the types of health misinformation. Health misinformation from foreign countries could be particularly extremely dangerous. And since the government is an institution that's going to be representing the good of the people in our country and representing us themselves, I feel like it's appropriate that we have a communication line between these social media platforms that are spreading around misinformation, potentially harmful misinformation that can affect us on a societal level. And these communications also has to be transparent in full force of the public eye. Same with the health institutions as well, because if these things are not transparent, you will lose the public trust anyways. And that's where I am.
And to wrap this up, we are advocating for promoting transparency through cooperative work with other trusted individual firms and institutions such as the government, and making sure that we have a systematic method in order to approach this, and also making sure we have an evidence-based analysis for every for all the behaviors during especially health emergencies. Thank you so much for listening to us. We appreciate it.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Okay, let me get this down. Okay. All right, so we've got one more team from St. Anselm in New Hampshire. And so let me give Michelle a couple of seconds. And every time I'm saying that, of course, I'm really just talking about me. All right. Okay, so let's see. So Jacob and Thomas, are you guys ready to go?
Yes, we are.
And we're going to have fun, right?
Yes, we are.
Okay, awesome. Okay, so I have got 3 minutes after the hour, so go.
All right. Good morning. Yesterday, our consulting team spoke with the entire board about some of the broader issues inherent to generative AI. You've asked us to come back and meet with this working group to talk specifically the ethical dilemmas components of yesterday's presentation. So just to make sure we're all on the same page, we are AID, AI Decision Ethics, a consulting firm hired by the OpenAI board. First, my colleague Thomas is going to run us through some of the dilemmas posed by AI, and then I'm going to talk about our solutions.
Thank you, Jacob. In the mission statement of OpenAI, the board of directors claims that the OpenAI's goal is to benefit all of humanity, not just a select few. With that in mind, I will delve into some of the ethical issues OpenAI faces as a company. Many of these issues are present because of the very nature of generative and general AI, but some come as a result of OpenAI's for-profit sector and its goals. The first issues I will address lie on the legal side, firstly, the for-profit goals of the company. Essentially because content created by generative AI is formed by pre-existing content, selling the output content may be problematic. Essentially, the company does not have the rights over the content which is being put into the models, the language models, so they can't really sell what comes out. If OpenAI attempts to expand to do this, there's a likelihood of many legal consequences. A related issue on the legal side is privacy, as generative models use content that many creators and lay people have not given express consent for use. There are many kinds of data, such as personal details, that many people may be uncomfortable with being used to to create content, whether through the language model of ChatGPT or the image generating source of, DALL-E. Now moving on to issues of public use, there's some narrower issues that the models, there's concerns that the models may either be too restrictive or too loose with the usage policies. We recognize that these are OpenAI's policies and they have the right to control what content comes in and comes out of their models. For example, preventing ChatGPT from giving instructions as to how to create a bomb or a commendable exercise. Generally, OpenAI does a great job of preventing misuse in this way. As long as they're consistent in doing so, we see no grave issue. A broader issue with public use is the potential for widespread misuse of the language models in propaganda creation or even scam creation. The AI may help in creating algorithms that may be useful resources for propagandists and scammers. It may likely influence online or transform online influencing. And unfortunately, even if OpenAI implements many regulations to prevent propagandists and scammers from using their language models, there are plenty of other AI competitors that they could go to. And fully mitigating an issue like this might take governmental aid because of the fact that it's not an OpenAI issue. One issue present in the very nature of AI is the risk of social biases appearing in the language models. These issues arise because AI works off of, again, pre-existing content created by humans, and that content tends to contain human biases. So sometimes those can creep into the content that is output by the models. OpenAI has taken great strides to prevent and correct many of these biases. Sometimes users expose them, sometimes researchers do. But we believe as long as OpenAI stays on top of correcting and finding these biases, this will be a non-issue for the company as well. Finally, there are two main issues of public impact. The first being economic. With any new technology, there's concern that it will replace jobs. The fear is that a robot is taking your job. OpenAI's researchers recently published a study that acknowledged that 80% of the workforce is likely to be impacted by AI technology in the future. The severity of that impact greatly varies, but there's some concerns in the public about that. We recognize that in the American free market, OpenAI is fully within its rights to develop new technologies. However, there's likely to be some governmental intervention because of the wide impact, the wide possibility for or potential for impact that AI poses. And finally, the most salient concept when it comes to AI is the potential for impact on human safety and security. The threat of an autonomous artificial general intelligence is commonly referenced in popular culture. Think Will Smith and iRobot. Thankfully, the language models that OpenAI creates are much more narrow than artificial general intelligence. However, OpenAI does perform research at AGI and seeks to align the AGI with human values. We ask for some clarity with those values because AGI is one of the biggest drivers of hesitancy in the general public and is likely to be one of the main concerns that governments have as AI continues to develop. Now that I've covered the main ethical issues we found in our research, I will now pass the baton to Jacob.
All right, thank you, Thomas. With the ethical dilemmas that my colleague mentioned in mind, we do have some recommendations. Two of our recommendations are designed to be used when appropriate and on a case-by-case basis by OpenAI, and our final one is more essential, more important, and I believe it's why we were called back to this. So first, postpone the release of new models until safety is guaranteed for each additional model. And secondly, hire focused study groups for beta testing as opposed to relying so heavily on the general public. So our first proposal, delaying releases, is something OpenAI has already done. The model of ChatGPT that shook the world late last year had been delayed several months so that there was a smoother, more refined, and less racist model available to the public. Of course, the downside of this approach is that if a model isn't released, software isn't released, it's not earning you money. Our second proposal, further use of in-house testing, has to be dealt with on a cost-benefit analysis. So you need to decide whether it is worth it to spend those extra resources to have testing and testing done in-house, or whether it's best to do it in the public, but face the extraordinarily bad publicity that can come with that when your AI puts out erratic results. So finally, our primary recommendation, preemptively requesting the creation of a governmental oversight body. I know federal oversight is a scary, scary phrase for a business, but I'm going to explain that this is not only an ethical option, but a cheap one for OpenAI. If regulation is inevitable, which it is, then you ought to make sure that it's regulation to your benefit and make sure it's on your terms. Because bluntly put, nobody understands how AI works. This is scary. People are afraid of your product, and that fear may well destroy it. Look at Italy, where ChatGPT has already been banned. At the current level of public hysteria, a similar ban is possible and regulation seems inevitable. So calling for an oversight body, like Mark Zuckerberg did for Facebook and data privacy, is a necessary preventative measure. It is only through public and legislative understanding about what you are selling and what it can do that there can be any assurance of safety and ethicalness. So work with the senators like Senator Chuck Schumer, who are currently writing legislation regulating your business, and be in the room where those decisions are made. Because if you don't, one of your competitors is, and they will do it to your disadvantage. So there's no upfront cost to this. There is long-term cost of regulation, but no upfront cost. It does not privilege your competitors. And besides, more transparency is more ethical than less. And your mission is, and I quote, to ensure that artificial general intelligence benefits all of humanity. Federal oversight is the best way to do this, and it might just prevent an overbroad, restrictive ban of your business model. Thank you so much for having us again.
Okay. All right. Amazing. So I recorded that as 9 minutes and 59 seconds. So that's pretty cool. Well, listen, congratulations to all of you. And again, forgive me for making a big deal about the minutes. That's not as important as the content. It's just a character flaw that I have. So listen, that was great. And I deeply appreciate how much effort and work that you all put into this. You all heard that Michelle and I, even though we've never met, we both have very specifically done exactly what you all have done this morning. For our jobs, we have had to present in front of a board of directors who are extremely important and busy people, and there are rare opportunities for you to get a chance to be in front of them. And of course, what you say in those 10 minutes literally will affect their decision making, which can affect millions of people and hundreds of millions of dollars. And so we're deeply grateful that you chose to be a part of this competition, because the reason I love it, it's so realistic and so well designed, because like I said, both Michelle and I separately in our careers have had to do exactly what you guys just did in those 10 minutes. So it is hard for she and I to, capture everything that we would like, because of course we want to devote all of our attention to listening, but we both took notes, and we have some feedback. Michelle is the official real judge for all of this and will be the one submitting her scores for the ultimate decisions about who will get in first place and second place and this and that. I, as the Uber judge, am going to weigh in simply with the feedback just to allow you to benefit from, again, someone who has direct experience in there. So, Michelle, are you ready to share feedback with everybody?
Sure. I'll echo what Tim said. Great job. This is tough. This is tough work to try to influence a board. And I think you've done you all have done a great job. I was in some sessions yesterday as well with your research. I feel like you've all followed the instructions quite well. I am newer judge, so I'm kind of taking it in as you are as well. I'm glad Tim's here to back me up and help add anything that's more valuable with all his time and experience with the program and obviously professionally. So let me start off with, let's see. Let's start with UCF. Let's see who started which.
USF?
South Florida, right?
Yeah, right, with Christopher and Leanna.
Okay, great. Let's start with you guys. So I thought that your presentation skills were very strong. Did a very good job about summarizing, presenting the facts, the agenda for your presentation. I thought you were passionate about what you were speaking about without being too emotional, which is important. And that's probably something I'll touch on with everyone, but it's always great to bring your humanity into your presentations and your influence, especially when we're talking about ethical decisions. Board members are very busy and they've got a lot of conflicting responsibilities, ethical obviously being one, but obviously financial, which is always a balancing act for these kind of decisions. So by you presenting all of the different options and how you've looked at each of the options and the pros and cons I thought was strong. And it helped orientate me, especially since I hadn't been in the original presentation. I liked just you talking a little bit more, Liana, about moral agency, and again, being passionate about it without being overly emotional. So you're supporting it, but also with facts. Liked the references to your Bloomberg your Bloomberg story and sourcing, the good explanation of the gambling streams. I would recommend, maybe building that out a little bit beyond gambling. I know that you also talked about child protection and bad actors and such. That would probably, I think, help to kind of delve a little bit into those examples as well to really show the detrimental effects from, minors being exposed to this information, not just from, gambling and financial, but then also from a safety issue, which, as you mentioned multiple times with the moral agency, children aren't able to, at that in their development stage, able to identify some of these things. So, but very good examples. I really like that you mentioned the mission statement and you quoted it. I think it's important to focus that right off the bat with the board, that, the board of directors, that is, as well as an organization, a very important tool for them to guide their decision-making and the goals of the company. You have to know where, what your goals are to know what also you need to put in place, whether it's financial or, whatever internal changes. I don't remember the exact examples, but I did remember that you, Fiona, mentioned a couple examples, and there was very good imagery to it. So it pulled me in to really visualize and feel that. And I think that was important to get your point across from an ethical standpoint. Social impact and reputation. I thought that was an important aspect, especially in today's world, though, in today's culture, those are very relevant and important attributes of our society today, and they are very important. And a lot of organizations can, really build, not only from a moral and ethical standpoint, but also from a profitability standpoint. That can be a very good option and goal for an organization to look at that and to be a leader in, social impact. And I also liked how you described examples of what you would actually put in place, such as the age authentication, the disablement of certain features, to kind of wrap and have something very tangible to know, where, if we make this decision as a board, what does that really mean? And especially when we're talking about a technical topic, depending on, obviously, this is a fictional organization, but a lot of board members may not have some of that knowledge. So just remember that. I thought you used very clear language and a vocabulary that was appropriate too in explaining the issues and the technology. As far as, and then the other thing, I really liked how you mentioned the testing. And that was I thought, a good step in showing your critical thinking and really, what you're going to be, how you're explaining the project and what your focus is going to be and how, that it's well thought out, in other words. And I also liked where I think everyone you always need to be careful about when you bring up cons, of course, to your pros and to your recommendations. So, make sure that you keep it balanced. For this example, for your presentation, I like that you kind of balance that with, is it our responsibility or is it parents' responsibility? You're acknowledging that that's, something that you're going to you need to consider as an organization. And by, at least calling it out, you're not trying to hide from it. You're acknowledging that, there are other people that are, as parents, are responsible for this type of ethical dilemma in today's world. But, we also are responsible. And, what can we do as the organization itself, and maybe even partner with some of those ideas and those, parents and government agencies. Okay. Overall, like I said, great. I would just, as far as critical, some criticisms, just, I think, really, practice your presentations from, this kind of, smaller, presentation time. So I know that you all have, you're coming from a larger presentation, and then you've got to, pinpoint, the right topics, the right, influential, topics and recommendations. That's an art in itself. I think it's always a difficult thing to do. I also still struggle with it because you're so in the weeds. And it's really something to a practice I have found throughout my years until you get very, a lot more natural at that. Just practice until you, even if it's more conversational, talking with either some friends or other coworkers, peers, to really get that down and ready to go, because your confidence is really going to be important in building your confidence, your credibility. They're going to want to believe you. They're just as easily going to want to find, flaws to, possibly not support a big change. It may be, a little less cognitive than that, of course. We always hope that our board members are ethical, but it is just something to be aware of. And then body language. I think you both did a very solid job at presenting. You weren't too fidgety. You frequently, were looking at the camera. And not too much reading, but just that's just a general for presentation. I think everyone can work on, including myself. So great job. I don't know, Tim, if you want to make some comments or open it for comment or questions from the team.
So that was just the first team?
Yes. Do you want me to go through all?
Well, yeah, given that we're limited, we have a maximum of 19 minutes to go.
Oh, I
And so,
apologize. Okay.
yeah, we have to finish up by 45 minutes after the hour. So you're the most important person as the judge. So I want the other three teams to hear what you have to say about each of them. And,
Okay, great.
and if there's any time left over, I'll weigh in with my notes.
Sure. Okay. Okay, Jacob and Thomas. Another complex topic. Again, I would just caution when you're talking about a lot of technical information to be very clear and on your nomenclature and being clear, especially from being a complex topic, technology. There were a couple times that I was I got a little lost when you were describing some of the AI features, but that may be because I didn't see the original presentation. But I got a little confused on what you were talking about from the industry from IA and then from the company. So just be a little bit clear on that. I thought your intro was excellent. You summarized everything. You described exactly what your agenda was in very clear and concise terms. So I was, ready to go and engaged for your presentation. I like the way that you brought in the different issues such as personal data and the use of, bringing it again to more of a human perspective and bringing the, a board member into it. How is that going to, not only for the organization, but what does that also mean for me as a person, an individual consumer? And I thought you gave a good way of looking at that by talking about the personal data, the issues that we see with public use and restriction. Body language, I know that it's kind of awkward if you both sitting next to each other. I would just be aware of that when one or the other is presenting, to be also present and aware, so that you're also supporting your peer, your colleague. That also builds to your credibility and professionalism. And that's just something, again, like I said, I think presentation skills it's a work of art. I still practice a lot before doing so. But these are just things I wanted to point out to you because I'm seeing you on screen, and it's just nice to be aware of from a body language perspective that you're cognizant of that. As I said, I really like the explanations of the different ethical issues. I would have liked to have a little bit more information on, what are the steps that we're actually going to do. It was as far as the providing of government or independent peer work out, working with the organization. I like that you mentioned, I think this one was the Facebook, use that as an example as a competitor that they have a similar solution in place that you're suggesting, which is the committee. Maybe delve that out a little bit more, and as to what is really attainable and what you foresee that to happen. So it seems tangible and doable, really. And one thing, this is something I noticed in a couple of presentations, but I had noted it here, which when you're talking about financials and costs, be careful on when you're trying to influence your decision and using information such as there will be no upfront costs to this solution. I say that in general, from a board perspective, there's always some kind of financial cost, most likely, whether it's labor time to put this committee together, we're pulling people from a different role where, that's just kind of transition costs, but it just, and you don't need to acknowledge all of those, details per se, depending on the project, but just be aware of not claiming that there wouldn't be any costs, because it kind of, right away, it kind of made me think, is this too good to be true, if you will? And that's just one word, no cost, no upfront, a couple words, no upfront cost, but just to be caution of that when you're defending your solution and what would be good from a financial versus ethical standpoint, and what would be best for the organization to get behind and support and invest in. Okay, move on. UMass. Again, I like the mission statement being brought up specifically. It kind of grounds the board, and especially from the assignment to be focused on the ethical dilemmas. Just mentioning that you have it's important in your mission statement. I don't think this is impactful. I think it's a nice reminder to board members that there are mission and values that the organization purposely adheres to. Again, it just brings them back some focuses what you want the audience to really focus on and hear and provide you feedback on. I like the solutions of your listening sessions. I like that you talked about a plan. While it's 10 weeks at this point, whether that time frame is correct or not on a fictional situation, it just shows that you were thoughtful about it. How long? What's the end goal? How long is it going to take? That's one of a strong question that will be frequently asked. A board needs to know what the end goal is, the time frame, as much as the financials and other things, and it's just a well thought out process. I really liked when you talked about the employees, that you've heard their voices, that this is something that employees have raised. These are issues, these are concerns. I think that helps back up the point of the importance of employee retention, employee acknowledgement. From an ethical standpoint, that is strongly rooted in the mission statement as well, and you clearly articulated that as well. Okay, and then we have Michigan. So I thought you did, sorry that you got the wrong email invite. I thought you recovered pretty well and got going. So thank you. I know that was probably a little unnerving for that to happen. Great job. In saying that, let's talk a little bit about body language. I like that you were able to recover and be calm in the situation, but your body language was a little lax and not as formal and professional as I think during a board meeting that you know your audience. In other words, with this being a presentation for a corporate board. Support your colleague when they're presenting, try not to fidget, try to, sit up straight. Again, presentation is, only one part of this entire project that you've really done really well at. When you're using examples like Dominion, I think that's a great, timely and current event. And if there's a similar current event that's happening during the time of a project or another problem that you're talking with a board, I would say 9 out of 10 times someone may ask about it because they want to know. It's in their mind. It's current events and newsworthy. It may relate to them as an organization. So I like that you brought in the examples of let's say abortion, because you were talking about health information, misinformation. When you bring in, things like Dominion, things like that, great example as well about ethical issues and corrective action for organizations, but I think it would help your argument if you would have had more examples specific to healthcare and health information. And you did have a couple really good ones. I did take note, like I mentioned, the abortion, COVID, which is also a very current and timely example, which I think people can resonate with, especially since it was so impactful to the world, as well as the Benadryl. And then I would also recommend just linking a little bit more and having more detail about your recommendation, because it does have involvement with government or other independent agencies. That's a great recommendation, but how would that be accomplished? Maybe a couple clarifying points on ways that you can actually implement it in support and make it, again, feel like it can be attainable and a good solution for the board to make. So I think that wraps it up for me on general and specific. Again, I think you guys did a wonderful job. I can tell that there was a lot of hard work that went into your research and creation and presentations. So I thank you again for letting me be part of it. And I'll open it up to Tim or any of you for questions or clarifications on anything that I've shared with you.
Well, I will take advantage to jump in. So Michelle, are you available via LinkedIn?
I am.
Okay, so there's only 8 minutes to go. I have a lot to say, and I definitely will not go past 45 minutes past the hour. So I may not leave a lot of time for each of you to ask questions of us, but please know both Michelle and I are separately available on LinkedIn, or you can get our email addresses through Tom White or anyone at IBEC, because we'd be happy if you have specific questions of us or something like that. And I apologize, but both Michelle and I are passionate about all the work that you put into this. So we took a lot of notes, and I'm gonna go all the way to 9:45. So please don't hesitate to reach out to us via LinkedIn with any questions. So with USF, first I want to say it was very nice that we had a Fianna and a Leanna. That was really cool. But anyway, so with USF, I thought it went really, really well. The manner in which the two of you looked into the camera, the manner in which you had passion in your voice, I really believed that you cared about this, and that must happen when you're presenting to the board. In this kind of a Zoom situation, the board members don't want to think that you're reading from a script, and I didn't get that feeling. I really felt like you had prepared well enough that it's perfectly okay to have an outline in front of you or something like that, but you kept your eyes on the audience, which was excellent. This was all supposed to be about ethics, and right from the get-go, I think Leanna was, somebody was talking about our responsibility to protect the children. Obviously, that responsibility, an extremely important word in business ethics. Loved that you posed as a 13-year-old. That I all four of your teams, it's great when you take risks. The team that talked about abortion, that's risky, but it was a good risk. And you posing as a 13-year-old, that's a risk that might kind of anger a board member who doesn't like to be jerked around like that, but it was the right thing to do, because 95% of the time they want you to test things like that. The way you said that parents are responsible, but Twitch has a responsibility as well. Fantastic, because you always want to talk about what Michelle said, the cons. You want to acknowledge the arguments who disagree with you, so the board members know you've looked at the big picture and still believe that your solution is the right one. So Michelle was right about that. Also, like Michelle said, I very much like that you mentioned Twitch's mission statements and policies, because there's no better way to challenge a board to be ethical than to force integrity on them. And we all know integrity means to walk the talk. So if we put out a mission statement and policies, there's no better way to get to the board members than to challenge them to walk their talk. I liked you used the phrase acting unethical. So I like that you actually used the word unethical. The fact that you brought in that outside expert on mental health issues and suicide is excellent. This has to be more than just your personal opinion. So bringing in the outside experts gives that objectivity. The very specific example, many of the teams gave very specific examples. The two young girls with the predator, perfect. You need to shake up the mind of these listeners. You need to get their attention, and that did. Mentioning the other countries. So this is, I wrote it down as your opponent's argument, which is what Michelle said about cons. I just really felt like USF had a great beginning, middle, and end. As I said, your timing was flawless within the 10 minutes, and just a really nice balance between the two speakers. Moving on to our friends from UMass. This, again, also went very well. Right from the beginning, you're making the point, the company is making its own statements, but its actions conflict. So it's perfect. Just what I just said about USF, integrity. You are appropriately challenging their not being as high integrity as they want to be or should be. Fianna had again a great passionate voice, looking into the camera. Didn't feel like she was reading, which was awesome. The way that you made the culture of belonging such a central focus, and you purposely restated that phrase like 4 or 5 times, to hammer it into the mind of the people listening, was perfect. Because it's what's important, and these board members are busy, they're tempted to be checking their smartphones, and so you've got to find a way to get to them. Bringing in the Gen Z and boycotts. I mean, when you're talking to Starbucks, guess what? It cares about the future. And it's fun when 60-year-old people buy coffees, but when they're talking about their future profits, they're looking at Gen Z and millennials. So that was awesome that you're hitting them where they care. Very specific reference, I think, by Sophia to the core ethical questions. So again, if we invited you back specifically to talk about the ethical issues, that's fantastic. The way you said to regain trust, you're complimenting them that they had earned trust in the past, but you're challenging it for the fact that they lost it, they need to get it back. You did strategy and tactics. This is great, made reference to guiding principles. The 4-part plan, the specificity was great. The only thing I don't know if I heard from UMass, maybe it was there, but why has Starbucks not been supportive of the unions? And so because everything you said seems so straightforward and obvious, but there must be reasons why they haven't been. Those are worth acknowledging. For Bulldog Consulting at University of Georgia, again, I agree with Michelle that you handled the unfortunate reality of this as well as you possibly could. I'm going to suggest to Tom in the future that he give the Uber judges the phone numbers so we can literally just call you directly to get you on. That little thing at the beginning where the laptop fell, you did it perfectly. That happens. It's happened to me, and you didn't talk about it. You just fixed it and went forward. That's exactly what you're supposed to do. You immediately, Gwen, got into talking about harm, which is perfect because this was supposed to be about ethics today. I love that you brought in the Dominion information to show that even though you may have written your presentation a month ago, you were prepared to stay on top of the most current information instead of wasting our time. loved the specificity of the Benadryl and Tide Pods, and the ivermectin story worked out well. It did come down. You did take 12 minutes, which went past the 10, like I said. So I loved Lance's conversational style more than any of the rest of you. He came across like he wasn't reading, but I guess the risk of that is the possibility of going over time. So I loved the presentation style, but so time often is a big deal. And it's 45 minutes after the hour. St. Anselm, love the balance among the two speakers. The recommendations being so on point and specific. And again, you mentioned ethical and cheap at the end, the reality of it being banned in Italy, so focusing on what really matters to these people, the specificity of Senator Schumer and others is excellent. Clearly, Jacob and Thomas, very well prepared. So anyway, listen, I'm sorry that we're rushing and everything, but again, I can't thank you enough for all the work that you put into it and for giving so much this morning. Again, don't hesitate to reach out to Michelle or I individually on LinkedIn if you would like, and good luck with your 90 seconds. And is there anything to say before we shut the whole thing down?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. for your
Thank
feedback.
you.
Thank you.
Okay, listen, good luck everyone, and good luck for the rest of your academic year as well. Oh, I hope to hear from some of you, and take care. Bye.